Welcome back to another episode of Meet the Lawmaker. We are joined this week with Congressman Max Miller, who represents Ohio's 7th District. And Congressman, just to kick off the interview, tell me a little bit more about your district and the types of agriculture that are in it.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you on Agri-Pulse. So we have Ohio's 7th Congressional District, and I'm proud to say it's an R7, where we have 3 out of our 4 counties that are ag and rural, which is and are Medina, Wayne, and Holmes County. And then we have half of Cuyahoga County. The demographic of the district really is a representation of who we are, and that is Ohio, which is 1 in every 7 individuals in the state of Ohio works in agribusiness. So it is one of the predominant industries, if not the predominant industry within our state, and it's truly just something I'm honored to really get into the depth of knowledge about. So it's been exciting, and we're looking forward to continue to operate there.
Now, tell me, did you have a background in agriculture before coming to Congress?
No, and I made no bones about it. I remember when I was campaigning, and my opponent and I went into the Farm Endorsement Bureau for an interview, and he was able to go first. And his spiel was, "Oh, I know everything about farming." And so when it was my turn to go, I actually looked around, and what was unique about this is all of the members were from the 7th District, right? This was an endorsement review by your constituents. And I looked at them and I said, you know, I didn't grow up on a farm, but I need you. And I need you as partners to help educate me so I can be the best champion for you in Congress. And I believe that resonated because I believe a representative is someone that goes home, listens to their constituents, and implements it into pieces of legislation. And it's not for somebody who thinks they know everything, because then you get bad policy. So it's been an honor of mine to be endorsed by the Farm Bureau to really dive into these issues and really care about a family and a community that's just like mine. My father owns a small business, and I see the same passion within our farming and ranching community, that it's very personal and it's family tied, and I love it. So I'm excited to continue to work on it.
So as you've been going out and having those conversations, what would you say has been like one of the biggest takeaways that you have learned this far about the agriculture industry?
It is shocking that members of Congress and the mainstream media don't talk enough about the plight of the farmer and what they're going through right now, whether it's through the different regulatory agencies that are barreling down on our farmers and ranchers, saying that something could be a waterway when it's just a puddle, and then making our farmers and ranchers hire an engineer for $8,000 every single time that they go through something like that. And the majority of our farmers and ranchers simply can't afford that. But that's just one instance of what they're going through. You know, we're not even 100% self-sufficient on the fertilizer that we have within this country, right? We get that from other countries. Why aren't we self-sufficient on fertilizer here to grow our food? Why aren't we 100% independent on food security, which is national security? It continuously blows my mind. And so that's why, you know, we continue to press and educate our colleagues and constituents on just why it's so important that people need to talk about what our farmers are going through. And I'm proud to do that every single day here in this office and outside of this office.
So you have a seat on the House Ag Committee and then also on the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. You know, with the upcoming Farm Bill that's coming up, what would you say are some areas that you would like to see improved upon?
Yeah, so right now I'm proud to say that I'm a proud co-sponsor of E15 year-round. And you asked earlier about what are our biggest crops in the district, and these go hand in hand. So sorghum, soybean, corn, and wheat, those are our major crops within the district, and it's wonderful for E15 and what we're calling Farm to Fly, which is a sustainable fuel for our jets, because we don't have hybrid planes. They still run off of jet fuel, and this is a beautiful symbiotic relationship between our farmers, who can now, you know, be more successful pumping out ethanol, right, and subsidies, and then still trading over to the countries like Asia for exports and still making more money, helping the American people. I'm very excited about that. We're working very hard on farm insurance and the safety net and everything that we can do, but make no mistake, I believe that we're going to be looking for an extension on the Farm Bill. I know Speaker Johnson, big fan of him, and Chairman Thompson. They said that we're hoping to get it done by December, but I believe realistically it's probably going to be by the beginning of next year at some point with an extension.
All right. So you also, on the House Science and Space Technology Committee, you chair the subcommittee on environment.
Yes.
How do you hope to use that leadership position to advance priorities that are related to the ag industry?
Thank you for that question. Well, it goes hand in hand with the regulatory agencies that have been barreling down on our farmers. I'm proud to say, as the subcommittee chairman of environment, I get to harass the EPA the same way they harass all of the American people and our farmers. So what I had just referenced in terms of a puddle in a waterway, or with the WOTUS ruling that we saw come down, which was absolutely insanity, and I'm glad that's been course corrected. But some of these things we're going to continuously have to work on. But that's the biggest pain point of how I can be the most helpful, is really just barreling down on the same regulatory agencies like the EPA that barrel down on our farmers, and those two have jurisdiction that are connected, and it makes it easier for me to do my job.
So before you ran for Congress, you were a senior advisor to former President Donald Trump. What would you say was like one of your biggest takeaways working for the Trump administration?
Yeah, it was definitely sink or swim. Right? You definitely knew what you had to do and you had to execute. President Trump was someone that really didn't tolerate someone who didn't produce. People said that our administration was like a revolving door. I think that's the wrong interpretation of it. I think what you saw was a successful businessman who was elected president of the United States, who had cabinet secretaries who are not meeting their metrics. So just like in the private sector, if you fail at your job, you should not have it and you will be replaced. Well, the government should run the same way, in my opinion. And this has been one of the only entities I've seen that people who kind of stink at their job continue to move up somehow. Well, we didn't tolerate that. And so what I've learned is throughout that time in the Trump administration that we need to change government. And that means that if you're not good at your job, you need to be replaced. And that goes for the halls of Congress and for every publicly elected official. And I believe every federal career bureaucrat that's here. We should all want better for the American people, regardless of political affiliation. So I believe that we just need more guardrails put in place within this body, and we would really do the work of the American people moving forward.
So can you expand a little bit more on what made you want to run for Congress in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody. There was an individual who had this seat, and he's a very great man, Anthony Gonzalez. He took a very bad vote, but he happened to be where I lived and where I was from, and I knew that someone was going to run for the seat, and I thought that I would be a better representation than anybody else who would run. So just like when I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps, I talked to my family, I prayed about it, and I decided to run for Congress, and I'm really glad that I did, because I believe that if another individual was in this seat, they would not be as pragmatic, they would not take care of their constituents the way that we do. And frankly, I believe I'm the only member of Congress that donates a quarter of his salary to the constituency, which I'm very proud to say. I just gave $43,500 of the Ohio 7 payer dollars tax money to the Medina Technical Educational Career Center. And I believe that we're doing everything we can to make a positive difference within our community that I look at more as like a family.
All right. You touched on the Marine Corps. That segues into my next question. So how would you say that experience has helped you here in Washington?
I'd say it's helped me immensely. The Marine Corps, when I went in, taught me leadership, it taught me management, it taught me confidence. And these are things that have to be learned. Some people in life are given those gifts when they're born, and others have to be taught. And the Marine Corps taught me structure, it taught me discipline, it taught me how to be a leader. And I was able to take all of those qualities from the military and carry them over into my professional life. And you can ask any of our colleagues within the office, because we all work together, they're not staff, they're colleagues, we're all co-equals, that they feel that sense of camaraderie, that this office operates a little bit different, I think, than the rest of people on Capitol Hill, and we're just a little bit different. Maybe that's because of my age or how I am, but I really believe that we're making a big difference here.
So I also want to touch a little bit more about the recent events that are taking place. You are one of 2 Republican members that also belong to the Jewish community. Mm-hmm. With the recent events that have taken place in Israel, how are you working to shed light on the situation and educate your fellow lawmakers?
I'm doing everything I possibly can. We just took a vote last week on Israel, and I believe only 15 members of Congress, Republican and Democrat, together 15, voted against it. So 435 members of Congress, I think there's 2 absent, so 433, but over 400 members stand with Israel, Republican and Democrat. And what's going on right now, it's very clear, and I can put it this simply. People want a ceasefire. If Israel puts down their weapons, there will be no more Israel. if Hamas puts down their weapons, there would be a ceasefire. And to be clear, Israel has been measured in their approach since 1948 and gave the Palestinian Authority the Gaza Strip to try to make peace in 2005, and Hamas is a governing body that was elected in 2006. What happened on October 7th, when they went over their border and murdered and raped and beheaded and burned babies, is horrific. Imagine if our country, our ally to the south, Mexico, came across the Texas border and went into Americans' homes and raped women, burned babies, and cut their heads off and did horrific things to them. What would be our response as the United States? Israel is the only functioning democracy within the world. It's the only Jewish state. There are 22 Arab states, and even Egypt that borders Gaza right now won't even let those people in, and I wonder why. This, at the end of the day, is blatant anti-Semitism, and it's hate against Jews. It's in Hamas's core tenets. It says to kill all Jews, and to be clear, this was the largest terrorist attack, not only on Israel, but also on the United States since 9/11. Over 20 Americans were murdered. They have over 200 hostages. We don't even know how many Americans Hamas has right now in their tunnels and what are being done to them. We need a full-blown response, and we need to make sure that Hamas is eradicated from the world so they may never commit these acts again. And I'll wrap up with this. The leader of Hamas yesterday or today made a statement, and he said that there will be an October 7th every single day until we get Palestine back. So for anyone asking for a ceasefire, anyone who thinks they're being pragmatic about this issue, I implore you that this has nothing to do about a piece of land. This has to do about killing Jews, and it's in one of their main tenets. So obviously I'm very emotional about it. I have family there. I am one of 2 Republican Jews in all of Congress. But make no mistake, if this happened on our soil, our response would be a lot more aggressive than what the Israelis are doing, and they have every right in their power to take care of their people that aren't Jewish. They're Jewish, they're Christian, they're Muslim, they're Hindu. There are so many religions and creeds and denominations. They're just like us. So we'll do everything we can to support them.
Now, shifting the conversation, we've talked a lot about, who Congressman Max Miller is, here on Capitol Hill, but let's get to know who you are off of Capitol Hill. Why don't you start with just telling me a little bit more about your family?
Yeah, I'd love to. So first and foremost, my wife, her name is Emily Miller, and we are actually expecting this Friday our first child, baby girl. So I'm really excited about that.
Congratulations.
So throughout all this craziness in the past month, it'll actually have some good family time. But I grew up in Cleveland my whole life. My parents are Abe and Barb. My brother is Jacob. My dad owns a small hat manufacturing business on 30th and Carnegie called Graffiti. Everything is made, sewn, and assembled and constructed here in the United States. And I grew up in that factory, a small business. Every summer I'd go there to work. Every weekend I would go there to work. And if I ever wanted something in life, so say when I was 6 or 7 years old, and say I'd be at a Rite Aid, and I'd be like, hey Dad, I really want that Hot Wheels car. He'd be like, okay, you can have that Hot Wheels car. So he would buy it for me, but he would say, okay, it's time to go to work. And I didn't know what he meant by that. So the first time I went with him, and then he handed me a check-in stub, right? A time card. And so I punched in, and I put in 30 minutes, and I punched out, and he said, this is what it takes in order to buy that Hot Wheels car. And that's how I was raised. He taught me the value of $1. And if I didn't want to go to work that one day, he would then take that toy and he'd put it up on the mantle and drive my brother and I crazy. But that's how we grew up. And right now, it's sad. My father's 40 employees down, 6 months backed up on supply chain issues, and still has roughly around 60 employees that he takes care of. But those 60 people could end up being 200 or 250. And right now we're living in a very tough economy to where he's had to raise prices on his caps. But we come from a very hardworking family, and as you can see, we are here every single day working incredibly hard on behalf of the American people in the 7th. So, really, it's just from Northeast Ohio. I love it there. I'm really happy to be back, and I'd rather be back there than here even today. But all of that being said, it's really an honor to serve the community you grow up in and to be a product from it. And you can feel that, and other people feel it as well.
Well, on that note, we will wrap up the conversation. So thank you so much, Congressman, for sitting down and talking with us today.
No, absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you.